tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Saul fans. Welcome back to the Better Call Saul after show here on AFTERBUZZ TV, talking about the best show on television right now, if you feel me. Talking about Season 1, Episode 8, Rico. I'm Matt Lieberman. Joining me as always, the panel's all here, Mr. Zach Wilson.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in.
The lovely Miss Pegah Rad.
Hello.
And Mr. Stephen Lemieux.
Hi.
Hi. As always, folks, you can chat with us live on YouTube in the comments, or you can tweet at us using the hashtag ABTVSaul. My Twitter handle is at Matt Lieberman. That's MATTLIEBERMAN.
I'm on Twitter at @ZachWilson, THATZCHWILSON.
And I'm on Twitter at Pegah Rad.
At Stephen Lemieux, STEPHEN,
Yeah. Now, normally, this is the point in the show where I fawn over it, and I try to come up with some new way to talk about how this show is so great.
This episode was just absolutely terrible.
Honestly, this is probably one of my favorites.
I would agree.
I would say
No, it's so good.
The favorite for me.
Yeah, you know, I'd be hard-pressed to top the Mike episode, but at the same time, I never thought I could be so enthralled watching two men in their late, 50s, 60s, 70s. Michael McKean, I think, is 70. Michael McKean is 70.
Wow, it's looking good.
I know, but watching a guy in his early 50s and a guy who is 70 sit in a dimly lit room looking at documents could be so thrilling.
So good.
It was extreme puzzling.
It wasn't extremely puzzling. It just, they were puzzling to the extreme.
Yeah, like that. Like, try shredding a piece of paper and putting it back together.
Yeah. Puzzling, verb, and tense to solve puzzles.
I was quite puzzled by it.
Yes. And Zach, your thoughts?
Oh no, it was great. I actually see. Here's the thing: is as good as the Mike episode was, it didn't feel like this show. And
No,
like,
it didn't.
What I've come to love about this show, is stuff like this. This is like intense lawyering.
Yeah, and the interesting thing. Now, I think it was you, Stephen, who
Lawyering.
Lawyering is a word, Stephen.
Stephen, while we were watching the show, you mentioned an article, or was it a think piece that talked about how Mike is the one thing holding the show back from being its own animal.
Yeah, somebody wrote an entire article talking about how Mike is the worst character on Better Call Saul, and it's not for lack of love of Mike.
Right.
It's more just describing as Breaking Bad is its own thing, and Better Call Saul is its own thing.
Yeah.
But the one thing that like really ties them together and kind of seems like it's the show trying to be Breaking Bad is the Mike storyline, the aspects of that, where if you kind of take it at Mike's episode as a second glance, it's a very generic cop story.
Yeah.
And they kind of were like, you know, it's great, but we only have 10 episodes to learn who Jimmy McGill is, and they used an hour of our time just focusing on one character that just feels like it's trying to be Breaking Bad.
Now, admittedly, in that episode, we learned a lot about Mike, and we were given some very strong and compelling reasons to care about him beyond just sentimentality over our love of Breaking Bad. But I think this episode calls into direct question the quality of the Jimmy storyline and the Mike storyline, because Mike's scenes, which we'll get to at the end, are fairly contrived for a Vince Gilligan program, I would say, versus everything that's going on with Jimmy, how much we enjoyed it, how fun it was to watch two guys try to crack this case and go for the gold and really just self-actualize in a real way. And then instead of watching Mike talk to his dead son's wife and then play with a kid with Play-Doh, and then we knew exactly what was going to happen as soon as she said that there were all these problems. You knew from that one look that he was going to wind up Breaking Bad. And I couldn't have, like, I'm curious to see where it goes, but those scenes were easily, like, the least interesting in an episode that, you know, on the face of it, isn't about much.
I mean, that's where this show sort of breaks from what, like, you would expect on television. Like, okay, you have two storylines. One's about a grizzled old cop who's killed people on screen.
Oh my God.
And he's going to have to do more of it to help support his daughter-in-law who's a widow.
Sounds like every movie ever.
And then this other plotline where you're going to have two lawyers trying to piece together shredded documents for an elder home that is stealing a couple dollars at a time from its residents.
Rob Schneider is the shredder.
Yeah. But which storyline am I way more interested in watching? It's the lawyers.
It's the lawyers.
I want to say though, because like when we watch this series over, and we see its entirety without having, like, basically go back and see kind of how pieces fit together.
Yeah.
And this may seem like digging to you, but I always believe that every scene has a purpose, and especially in this episode when we see Mike and we see all these things with his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter, and they're working together. The one line that, again, it's going to seem like digging. If you don't take those colors apart soon, they're going to make brown. And it kind of makes me think that you take Jimmy and you take Charles and you put them together, it might look nice, but it's not going to come out right.
I mean, I agree with you, especially considering the considerations in the Kim call, which we'll get into. But the thing for me is these Mike scenes this week are they were all function, no form. Not to say that they weren't lensed well or performed well, but it was purely about putting Mike in a position to break bad instead of, like, I don't know. I know it's a compelling reason to help your dead son's wife and your grandchild.
But we already know you do that.
Exactly. We knew that this was coming, so that's why there's not a ton of excitement. Versus, we learned so much about the relationship between Jimmy and Chuck this week. We got to really see them come together and self-actualize in a way that I was never expecting them to do. And it was so thrilling to see them succeed at something.
Yeah. I kept finding myself, every time Mike would come on screen in this episode, I was like, okay, back to Jimmy. Like, I wanted more of Jimmy. I didn't really care about what was going on with Mike. I just want them to work together again. Well, that's when the best stuff happens.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's not that we don't care about what is happening to Mike, but we're so invested in Jimmy at this point. We just want Mike's storyline to affect Jimmy and not just be, oh, there's also this Mike storyline. He happens to be nearby. It should be something, it should be building towards the same thing.
What I feel like it is this is the brilliance of Vince's writing, in that it may not seem like it is at the moment, and it may seem like it's unnecessary to involve this, but later on, there has to be a time where Jimmy makes a choice that pushes him to have to be the criminal lawyer and not the criminal lawyer. And I think it's going to be that time, and I think Mike's the one who's going to pull him to it.
You think that Play-Doh line is the key to that? Or you're talking about? Well, no, I'm not making fun of you. I'm asking.
No, I don't think that necessarily that Play-Doh line is the key to it. But even if you take that Play-Doh line for Mike and Jimmy working together, I was thinking Charles and Jimmy. But even you take that as Mike and Jimmy going together, if you take the right side of the law and the dark side of the law and you put them together, you get the gray. And Saul is the gray.
Yeah.
And if you kind of think of it that way, yes, I do see it that way. But what I'm saying is, everything that we see of Mike is kind of unnecessary at this point. But if Mike is the one who finally brings him over to becoming Saul, it would all make sense and come together.
Right, and that's the thing, and it's maybe also an issue with being, yes, a spinoff, but also a prequel, is that we know their destination, which is why deviations like the one that we saw this week with Jimmy and Chuck, where we had no idea that he had been a part of this class action lawsuit and worked with his brother, and his brother got cured of his non-illness. We know where Mike is headed, so these scenes are purely perfunctory. It's just moving this chess piece to a place that I'm sure is going to be very thrilling and have a lot of dramatic weight. But listen, we could beat up on this storyline all day long, but I'm worried that we're not going to get this union of the two that's meaningful until the second season.
I disagree. I think that we're going to see some. 2 episodes is not a short amount of time.
True.
And I think
yes, it is. 2 episodes, 2 hours. That's less.
That's a movie.
It's 90 minutes.
A whole movie.
That's 1 Disney film. 1.
They have 1 Disney film that makes some stuff
Or 13 minutes more than one Zombievers.
But this is the beauty of television, is that 2 episodes can feel like forever and no time at the same moment.
I agree.
And what I mean is that I think what we're gonna see is Mike going deeper into this like underworld of crime or whatever, sort of like your chess game. Like you've moved your bishop off to the side of the board and sort of left him hanging over there, doing like.
Well, he's been hanging all season,
moving around, like dodging little pawns here and there. And then what's going to happen is he's going to come into contact with, let's say, just another piece, maybe Nacho, and then those 2 people tied to Jimmy is going to bring him into this fold. And I have more thoughts based on like what happened with Chuck and what could happen with Chuck.
Yeah.
And that it just because I'm fairly solid that Nacho has to be pretty integral to what Jimmy and Saul's future is, because of just one line in Better Call Saul when they first, like in Saul's first episode, when they drag him out to the desert, throw him down, and he goes, "It wasn't me, it was Ignacio."
Yeah.
It has to be Nacho, right?
Okay, fair enough. Pegah, did you have something to say on that?
No, I'm good.
It's interesting. Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say one thing is that I think if it comes down to it, Mike's going to enter this world of all these people who are probably going to end up needing help. And if Mike develops relationships with these people and basically it becomes a mutually beneficial relationship where Saul can get help from Mike, but that means when one of Mike's guys needs legal help, he'll use Saul.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? A final thought on this, and then we're going to do an iTunes break and then jump into the meat of the plot here, is in many ways this season is kind of a prequel to the prequel. Do you know what I mean? Where we are setting up these 2 characters to forge an alliance that will forever chart the course of their lives. And whatever is going to play out next week, and we'll get into predictions, and I have a bunch, it is going to push Jimmy into the wrong place.
Yep.
Okay, real quick, if you want to support the show, the best way to do it is to go to iTunes, rate and review the shows that you listen to or that you watch on YouTube here on AfterBuzz TV. It's quick, it's easy, it doesn't cost you a dime, and it's how we're able to get great sponsors on the show that keep our lights on and our doors open, putting out over 100 hours of free after-show content a week, which is the largest amount anywhere, anywhen, anywhy, anywho, anyhow, anywhat. That's the last one. Anywho, yeah. It's the best way to do it. You can also click the little subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Big help for us, and you get a great shout out here on the show if you review on iTunes.
Yeah, Simpsons reference - bingo episode 7. Thank you. May I just say thank you? By El Oscuro Secreto. I don't know what that means, but I feel it's dirty. In previous podcasts, you all debated whether or not the show was tipping their hat at The Simpsons. I'm surprised that you did not talk about the obvious Simpsons reference in this episode. Jimmy specifically referenced the Kettlemans as Maude and Ned Flanders when he was on the phone with Kim. At this point of time on The Simpsons, Maude Flanders would have been alive. As you probably already know, she is now dead. Maybe that reference was a foreshadow of some sort. I don't know if it's a foreshadow of some... I mean, maybe.
Damn. Betsy.
A shirt cannon is going to hit Miss Kettleman, knock her off the stadium seating, and kill her.
Yep.
But there's no money.
There's no money.
There's no money.
Guys, for the last time, we've said it so many times, there is no money. I don't know why you keep asking.
And shout out to, what's the 23rd?
Yeah, today's the 23rd.
J Renee 424 last week?
Shout him out. Shout him out.
Yeah,
Tuesdays are my favorite because that is when I listen to my 2 favorite after shows, Helix and Better Call Saul. I would love to watch live, but when would I do it? Work. Happy St. Patrick's Day, guys. Go drink green beer.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Says great insight. 5 stars. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. So keep those reviews coming. And also, I'm just going to take this opportunity to plug next week, where we have an incredible guest, Mr. Michael Mando, who plays Nacho, is going to be in the building. So tweet us your questions with the hashtag ABTVSaul so that we can ask them to Michael, who's going to be an amazing guest. Okay, let's talk about this cold open where we get to see another key piece of Jimmy's past, where after Chuck got him out of jail and he came out to Albuquerque to join join him. He was working in the mailroom with Kim. That's where they forged their relationship, their friendship, whatever you want to call it. That was a nice smooch on the lips. May I say.
That surprised me.
Whoa!
Very, very into that he was. And so was she in the moment.
He passed the bar.
He passed the bar.
He'd like to pass her a bar. What?
Yeah. Whoa. Hey.
Whoa.
Listen, the long
that bar really well, Chandler.
Listen, the long arm of the law. It is long, it is steely, it is thick, and it is useful, okay? It is well used, the long arm of the law. I'm sorry, Pegah, and everyone else. But we really get to see... It's interesting watching Chuck and Jimmy in this scene where he tells him that he passed the bar, and Chuck, to me, very underwhelmed, shocked and underwhelmed and not supportive at all.
Yeah.
And then to see them forge a real bond over the course of the rest of the episode.
It was just nice seeing Chuck in a position of power. We don't get to see that much of that in this series, but to see that he was just so aloof about him. Passing the bar is a huge thing, and he was like, okay, and oh yeah, of course I'll try to hire you as a lawyer. Like
BS.
Yeah, he knew he was lying the instant. Like,
Yeah.
if Jimmy didn't think that, it was self-delusion, if anything else.
Yeah, it's sad that Chuck didn't want him to be a lawyer there.
yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
Really?
Why?
I wouldn't say that we know whether Chuck wanted him to be a lawyer there or not.
I thought it was written on his face.
Law firms have partners, but they have lots of lawyers. Like, they have people on their staff. You saw him going through the mailroom and giving all these folders to all their staff. It wouldn't be hard or too much of a stress to hire Jimmy as a lawyer. I think he was caught off guard, but I think it's really Hamlin who decided to not make him a lawyer.
See, I disagree. I feel like Hamlin was the bearer of bad news, kill the messenger, but I have to believe that it was Chuck. They had a conversation, and Chuck was like, listen, this just happened. We can't do this. He's going to flame out spectacularly. It's really cute that he did this whole thing. I'm impressed that he put so much work into anything, but I know my brother, and if we hire him, it will be a disaster.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think he wanted it at
I think
all.
Chuck's looking at it in a way like, oh yeah, I mean, he'll come in, but then he'll be trying to ride my coattails, and like, that's fine for a mailroom clerk, but not a lawyer.
And it's like his rep is on the line too. It's
Exactly.
his brother. He gave him the rec, you know.
Yeah, we can't have somebody with a degree from University of American
Samoa.
Distance education.
Well, we can already
What
see...
were they? The land crabs?
Go land crabs.
We can already see somewhat of the reason for changing his name, though, coming through the show, in that even when he's trying to start potentially the biggest case of his career,
Easily the biggest case of his
the
career.
only reason the guy would give him the time of day is because he thought he could be related to Charles.
McGill. Yeah. I have to imagine that by the end of this series, their relationship is going to be so fractured that he's not going to want to be associated with him ever again. And I have to wonder, and maybe this is a huge reach, but I have to wonder if discovering that Chuck was the reason that he didn't become a lawyer at HHM is the reason why he changes the name.
No, I don't think so. I don't
You don't think so at all?
I think it would definitely, like, that revelation would definitely send him reeling, like, into a spiral that could, again, just like we're looking for the impetus towards what makes him go down this criminal lawyer.
Honestly,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Honestly, I think we have a fight ahead of us with this case we're going to do, and I think it's going to come to another decision of, can I be a lawyer? And that's when he says no. I don't think we're going to go that far into the past. Like, oh, it was your brother who told me no 10 years ago or whatever. I don't think that would really hurt Jimmy that much, because honestly, he's smart. Like, he just passed his bar. It's a very prestigious law firm. The fact that he would get a job there would be kind of ridiculous in the first place. But to work with his brother, to prove himself to his brother, to do this gigantic case, class action lawsuit, and then be told no. That would hurt far more.
Well, this is also the moment where the seed is planted of Jimmy's hatred of Hamlin. Easily. Easily. I love the way that this scene is played out, where we've got the whole mailroom celebrating, and that one poor schmuck who's just like those high ups, you know,
Upstairs.
like, yeah, those dickheads. And Hamlin's right there. They all flee out, and then we cut the sound except for the sound of the copier as he delivers this news, and we know exactly what he says. And to watch him so crushed, because here's the thing, I think he buys it when Chuck says, you're my brother, it would be the easiest thing in the world to make you a lawyer. Of course, there's no way they could say no. And the fact that Hamlin still said no when it was supposed to be the easiest thing in the world has got to really instill a lot of fierce venom. Yeah, that's what Chuck said.
I thought Chuck was saying, like, you know, there's a lot of other people that kind of have to make that decision. Like, he was trying to, like, lower expectations at that moment. I didn't get the vibe, at least, that he was, like, saying anything to the positive.
I felt like he was on both wavelengths, because he said, you know, obviously there's a lot of people in that decision, but hey, what am I saying? You're my brother, of course. Like, that was the, and it felt really fakey to me, but I have to imagine that he wanted to hear what he wanted to hear.
Yeah, but you can totally see why Jimmy hates Hamlin at this point. This guy comes in, eats a piece of his celebratory cake. Like, come on, you know what news you're there to deliver. Don't take the cake.
Yeah, and he's like, do you want the door open or closed as he leaves? Like, just get out of here.
He's the Bill Lumbergh of Hamlin and Hamlin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy, so, gonna need to give you another 6 months on that lawyer position. We'll kind of reassess around then.
Yeah.
You working Sunday? We're gonna need you to come on in.
But there's no mail on Sunday.
We have some special deliveries.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about Sandpiper, where we have another Will scene, but this woman with the terrifying Jesus painting.
Oh, yeah.
Terrifying.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh my God, it's the first shot. It's just this bloody Jesus, like, barely hanging on to the cross.
It looked like even shot full of arrows.
Yeah. It was a nightmare photo.
War Jesus.
Yes, it was War Jesus. I would totally pay to watch a movie called War Jesus or World War Jesus. Where Jesus comes back, and
it couldn't be worse than World War Z, to be honest.
It could be so much better than World War Z.
Let's not go down this rabbit hole.
Right. Okay, fair enough. And he recognizes that there's a discrepancy with how she's billed. She's got this allowance. I love the moment where he stops and he's like, that doesn't sound right. I need to know more about this. And then he's lecturing all of the residents about what's going on. Huge mistake to do it right there, where he could be easily spied upon.
Yeah. Nosy McNoserson over there.
Well, he needed to find out if it was an isolated case or not.
Right, but do it in one of their apartments. Do it in one of their apartments. Don't do it in the common room right next to the main office. Although at the time, he still thought that it was maybe, you know, like a discrepancy here and there, and that they'd check it out. But seeing them shredding all that evidence, he knew. And I love this frantic scene where he's writing out the letter in the bathroom. He comes out with this toilet paper and back of a notepad. And just this whole episode is just Jimmy self-actualizing. It's what we've been working towards all season. The guy that we saw in the desert save his and 2 other lives with just the power of his mouth. Not gross. Don't take it there. Finally becoming the lawyer he was meant to be. And I love watching it. I was cheering. You guys heard me.
Yeah.
I couldn't shut up during the episode because I was so jazzed.
I just love when he comes out. He's like, James McGill, Esquire. Like, just to say that so proudly and like, oh, you've been served. Like,
and then 2 bouncers throw him onto the street.
The same 2 bouncers who utterly miss him while he's hiding in this horrid dumpster filled with old diapers, old Depends, shit, and just like every bit of detritus, and to emerge and then find the recycling bin right next to it. Again, the way that this show builds its comedic moments is so beautiful to behold. Truly.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So let's talk about Jimmy and Chuck in the here and now, right? So Chuck is annoyed with Jimmy. He knows exactly what he did. He knew that Chuck would not be able to resist working on legal documents because it's what he's done his entire life, and he's got to be bored to death in that damn house. And he's fed up. He's not quite listening to Jimmy, and then he realizes that he totally missed all all of this discrepancy, all of this fraud, and that Jimmy caught it. And Jimmy tries to like deflect and play it off like, oh, even a broken clock is right twice a day. But there's just this crushed look of heartbreak on Chuck's face. It's brief, but it's there when he realizes that he missed something huge and that he's not who he was.
Yeah, he used to be the best. I mean, like this guy, Schweikart or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Schweikart.
He called because he basically feared Chuck McGill.
Yeah.
He was like, if Chuck McGill is behind this, we have to be careful. And so for that person to miss something when he was going over the legal documents, that's hard to deal with.
Oh man, we completely blew over that first call with Schweikart in the dumpster. Yeah, he's whispering in this dumpster.
It's like, I'm at magic flute.
I'm at the opera.
Blow my magic flute. I loved it. Yeah. But I like this guy. He's a different kind of lawyer. He's not quite Hamlin. He is kind of reasonable, right? He's protecting his clients, and he is threatening Jimmy, but he's also, he's giving him, not the benefit of the doubt, but he is being kinder than he has to be. He's not being a hard ass. He still thinks he has the upper hand and that he's doing himself and Jimmy and Chuck all a favor by being kind about this. And Jimmy, thankfully, doesn't take the bait and is like, we're still gonna get him, you know, spoliation. Hell yeah. Comes home with just a bundle of shredded documents. It looks like a damn snowstorm on the floor, or whatever follows Pigpen around on Peanuts. And he's so overwhelmed with this stuff that he passes out in and amongst just, again, detritus. But Chuck, ever the OCD man, is that a thing that people say? No?
No.
Stephen is just not having it with me today. He is hitting himself with his microphone.
No, but I loved how Chuck came and gave, wanted to bring him coffee and put a pillow under his head. It was like he was caring for him. I mean, Jimmy's been taking care of him for so long. We saw that Chuck stepped up.
Yeah, Jimmy has always felt like a burden to Chuck, and it's nice to see him show the brother some love, for God's sakes.
So let's talk about this scene where he goes outside then, right? Is that where we're at?
No, we're not quite there yet. We're talking about when he somehow arranges all of these documents.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God they weren't cross-cut, because then it would have taken him 4 times as long, but I think he still would have been able to do it.
I mean, you're talking about next to impossible when it's cross-cut.
Oh, is it really?
Well, because part of how he's aligning those documents is like there's
line
a gray
by line
bar at the top, and like, okay, so I see the gray bar on these sheets. I can start there. If you don't have that, like getting anything below that line is like,
impossible.
Good luck.
It's like doing a pure white puzzle.
Yeah.
Or yellow. There were yellow ones too. But he finds the smoking gun in Jimmy's case, which we don't get to reveal until later, but it's Rico. Rico. The thing that I've only ever heard on cop shows and not on a show like this.
Sons of Anarchy.
And Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah, it has something to do with mobsters.
Crime shows. And this show isn't quite a crime show yet.
Rico's when the case you're building crosses state lines.
And it's a multi-state criminal conspiracy. Yeah. Yes. And Sandpiper has 12 different locations. And after this, he unshreds these documents effectively. He says, all right, so we're working together. And Jimmy's like, what? It's like, yeah, I'll work with you on this case. And it's sweet, but it's also kind of like, I want this.
Yeah, did you guys think for 1 second he was going to react like not happy about it? I did. I thought he was like, no, Chuck, this is my thing. This is my one chance to show
I think Jimmy's just... Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
No, that's okay.
I think Jimmy is just excited for the sole fact that every time he's come to his brother to work together on anything, it's always like... Is this slipping Jimmy again? Is this slipping Jimmy again? Every time he tries to even do the right thing, is this slipping Jimmy again? This is finally his brother acknowledging that he's working on a case that's actually worth working on.
Yeah. He's not assuming that Jimmy is trying to take advantage of him when he comes to him for help, and he's respecting him as a fellow lawyer to an extent. And also, I have to imagine that Jimmy is completely overwhelmed with the amount of work that this case would require, because Chuck is just tireless. He's a workhorse, and Jimmy is not.
Yeah, I mean, bringing Chuck in is you're bringing in a ringer, effectively.
Yeah.
Like, you're bringing somebody who knows the ins and outs of case law and knows exactly in an instant what things need to be pulled up and what precedents they can cite and what research they need to do, and that's when he calls Kim.
But we got to bring up the fact that he talks to Kim and she says, you can't use Chuck because he's a partner at HHM.
And that the clause in his contract that allows him to work with outside parties is only meant to work for pro bono cases. There is no way, like 1 to 2 million, maybe, just maybe, they could squeak by
I'm all
without.
bono.
He's like, I'm all bono, yeah.
But there's maybe a chance they could squeak by without having to give part of that money to HHM or getting them involved. But a $20 million case, there's
Yeah,
no way. No way.
That HHM, like, lets it go.
Oh, not at all. They will swoop
They
in
want some of
immediately.
that.
I guess the question is, like...
They want all that money.
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing where it's like, we're not lawyers, but like, I guess in his contract, if somebody else brings him in as like a consultant or whatever, does that legally then make it HHM's case if they choose to make? And I think that unfortunately for Jimmy, what I think it will probably come down to is like, yeah, you could call it a consultant, like calling a lawyer, asking for a favor, like all that, except that they charge the $400 for printing out those cases to
Chuck's number.
HHM. They charged HHM to make those copies. That means that HHM has spent money on this case, and that is going to be their precedent for taking it.
Very well put.
I think the angle Jimmy goes for is, what's the word? Leveraging this case for a position at HHM.
Well, he's going to try, but do you think Hamlin would ever let that happen, especially not after the billboard?
Well, I don't want to talk about the scenes or anything, but yeah, I think there's a possibility, but I think it's a trap, basically. They're going to trick him into taking a position that puts him on the outs.
Like, he has a position that, like, they don't have to actually give him any work.
Yeah, like they'll basically just blackball him.
I mean, look, they're going to take the case. They're going to take the money. Jimmy is not going to get to work on it. It will all be out of his hands, and there's nothing he can do about it. And in their haste to get this thing done, they really screwed up. They really screwed up with this print stuff. They really, really did. And Kim tried to warn him about it, and he's going to bite them in the ass next week. Let's talk about this meeting with Scheinkart, who, like, I was concerned when Jimmy goes out there to tell them to ground themselves, and, like, Scheinkart is basically, like, almost giggling about this. Yeah, I heard about this. It's fine. Leave your stuff. We're going to take them. We're going to give them 92 grand, and we're going to be out of here. Simple. And Chuck is nervous as heck about this. It was like almost pathetic. Like watching him, I felt so concerned. Even like when he's sitting there at the table, he just looks so confused and feeble. But it's all a ploy, man. He finds his sack at some point and just 20 million.
I love how he says like they're the Salvador Dali of creative. I'm like,
Yeah, very well scripted scene, very well played scene, and I love watching Michael McKean play drama because it's something we haven't seen very much, and he's such a gifted and capable actor.
Oh yeah, I mean everything about like the way that Chuck was presented in the different parts of this episode, like the smoothed back hair that showed up in the flashback, and then in right before the meeting, like it makes him look slick, makes him look like he's like ready to do business. In the flashback, it made him look like sort of evil, like what you think of when you see an evil lawyer on TV.
Yeah, I want to really quickly just throw to a couple comments, folks in the comments section. Ebony Princess 1972 asked if they ever mentioned the Sandpiper case on Breaking Bad. No, they did not, unfortunately. And Jen Cove says every scene was so dark in this episode. I hope Chuck didn't sabotage his efforts on this case. I don't think he did it on purpose.
Yeah, I don't think Chuck is malevolently going out of his way at all.
Yeah.
but he may have accidentally
really screwed them over. And then at the very end of the episode, Jimmy leaves some files in the car, and Chuck, without even thinking about it, because he's just in work mode, he just walks right outside to get it, opens the mailbox, grabs the clicker, uses it, and it's not until Jimmy is like, "What are you doing?" that he realizes that he's outside. And I was terrified that he was going to have a damn heart attack.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I honestly thought until they cut to black. I thought he was going to have a heart attack right then and there.
I mean, they still, like, he's still good.
It's true.
Like,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, but like it at that moment, like, it's just the dropping of the files is just like he's in shock that he's where he is.
Yeah.
I think it's that, like, the shock that made him drop the files. I don't think it's pain or anything like that. The whole time we've been introduced to Chuck, it's all about, I'll get back to work someday. I'll get better, and I'll get back to work and all that. And I think there comes a point in your mind where once one thing can battle another thing, and his electrodysmorphia, whatever you want to call it, is at war with his need to get back to work and need to crave these things. And I think it took that switch, because he's always believed he'll get better. Yeah. It's just that he doesn't believe that his illness is fake.
Yeah.
So I think if he walks outside and realizes that he's fine and isn't hurting, I think he'll take that as a, oh my God, I'm better.
Rather than like it being like a whole fake thing.
Well, because he can't argue with the fact that he didn't feel anything when he was outside for 20 seconds. He can't argue with that. In his mind, he won't be able to. I don't know the word.
Yeah, his pride is going to keep him from admitting that it was all in his head. In his mind, he got better. A good dose of work, and it cured him. Hell yeah. All right, it's time to quickly talk about Mike, who, he went over to Stacy and Kaylee's place, watched Kaylee for a while. He was real happy about that, and he found out. First of all, she showed him the money, and she's like, "Can I spend it?" He's like, "Of course you can spend it. If it does one good thing in this world, spend it." And she's like, "Thank God, because I have some serious bills." In his head, you just see it in a look, and it's so beautiful to watch Jonathan Banks like in this scene, because he doesn't even have to move, he doesn't have to twitch, he doesn't have to look down. You know what he's thinking, and it's just. Here I go.
I'm going to go adopt a puppy.
Yeah, I'm going to go adopt a puppy so that I can have a connect for some dirty work. And I'm sure we're going to get a lot of interesting scenes with that before the end of the season. And it's a big pivotal moment that just felt so quiet to me. But yeah, all right. I think it's time for predictions.
Oh.
Do you think it's time?
I mean, I think it's time. I don't know if you think it's time, but I think it's time.
We forgot to mention that he's going to save a slice for Kim.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very important plot point, because if you remember, a pizza was a large part of Breaking Bad.
It's
they
true.
threw one on a roof.
It's very, very true.
I think this directly ties in. This is no longer a spin-off.
Oh my gosh.
That pizza slice is going to turn into that pizza.
It's the same pizza.
It's the same
literally the same pizza. It is 8 years old.
That's why I threw it away.
The scenes from next week. If you do not watch these scenes and you don't want to be spoiled, it's time to jump ship. And we will see you next week with Michael Mando. Don't forget to tweet at us with the hashtag ABTVSaul with your questions. But the scenes from next week, it's obvious that Chuck wants to loop in HHM. Jimmy doesn't want to do it. He's sucked into doing it anyway, and the case will likely be taken away from him.
I don't think he wants to loop in HHM. I think Hamlin takes notice of that $400 paper charge and follows up and basically calls them in, and it's like, this is our case now.
Yeah.
Like, if Chuck's working it, it's ours. So, bye-bye, Jimmy.
Bye-bye, Jimmy. Have fun.
And he's probably going to make him a deal in which Jimmy's not going to be happy with, and Kim's going to try to pressure him to take the deal.
They're going to offer... Oh, I thought you were done.
Offer what? Yeah, I am done.
Oh, they're going to offer Kim a partnership.
Oh, really?
If she sells out Jimmy.
And now that Chuck is on Jimmy's side, they're going to push Chuck out with his mental instability.
No, but he's
not
over
a chance.
that.
Not a prayer. I think HHM offers to reinstate Chuck wholly if he lets Jimmy slide.
Well, they don't have to reinstate him because he's never been
he's already
out.
I think what Hamlin goes for at this point is Chuck's coming fully on back to work. And Kim gets bumped up to partner if Jimmy basically just takes like a cash payoff to just leave.
Or another thought, they offer Jimmy like a pity deal of like, look, we'll hire you as a lawyer. The thing you wanted back, remember a couple years ago? We'll hire you as a lawyer if you just keep quiet about this case and you don't see any money, you don't get any credit. Thank you, bye-bye.
Well, we noticed that earlier in the episode, they do give a nod to Hamlin just being an attention whore in that he's on the news and he's talking about the Kettlemans reaching a discussion. He says, we reached a discussion and
reached a plea.
Yeah, not Kim, him. Like he was taking over credit
you
for
could
himself.
barely see Kim. Like there was just a sliver of her in the frame on the television.
So he's trying to be the face of all these wins and things like that. And I think he'll try to use this as grounds to dismiss Chuck.
Yeah.
I think he'll use Chuck working with an outside firm as grounds to dismiss Chuck and relinquish his shares of the company.
Oh.
And if Kim will work together with him, he'll make her partner.
Wow.
That's what I think is going on. I think he's pushing Chuck out and getting rid of Jimmy at the same time. It's Hamlin case. He gets to take the case. He gives it to Kim. Chuck and Jimmy are both out. He doesn't have to worry about Jimmy
very
again.
legit. And it's totally going to send Chuck on a downward spiral.
Yeah, and then I also have one more just a note. When you see Jimmy talking to Hamlin, there's in the scenes it shows a clip of Jimmy next to Chuck in the office. But when it shows Jimmy talking to Hamlin saying, "You know I hate you," right? Chuck's not next to him. They cut that together differently. So we're going to see a one-on-one meeting between Jimmy and Chuck, Jimmy and Hamlin, without Chuck in the room.
Which is exciting because we haven't really seen them take the gloves off and go toe-to-toe.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see this side of Hamlin.
That's going to be really interesting. I don't think that they're going to try to oust Chuck. I think Hamlin has too much respect for him, which has been clear, I think, to this point. Yes, he's a money-grubbing fool, but I don't think he's going to try to oust Chuck, nor do I think that he would have legal grounds for it, just for him taking another case. The only question is whether or not that case belongs to HHM or not.
And I'm going to play off that just because Matt wants to talk, and I'm going to prevent him from talking.
Oh, so that was just a bluff. That was just nothing.
We also see Mike pointing a gun at somebody's head, so he gets down and dirty real quick.
Who is he working with?
I think Mike had a gun to his head.
He had a gun to his head.
Oh, okay, to his head.
Who is he working with? Who's he working for? I saw a tall, bald man.
Yeah.
Could it be...
I think it's collections.
Oh, doing collections for dirty types?
For the cartel, maybe? Do we want to, if it's going to go there that quick?
I don't know about the cartel.
I think Grand Theft Auto Vice City, you're just the new guy. You get the random mission, go hit this guy up for the money he owes me.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, as somebody who loves Michael Mando and wants to see more of Nacho and has felt kind of gypped this season, I hope that if we're getting back into the criminal element, it will walk us back to Nacho, at least by the season finale. I mean, we've got 2 episodes left.
Yeah, if we're gonna get criminal, we want Nacho.
Yeah.
Question: Season 2 prediction. Honestly, do you think Hamlin's clean, or do you think they find something to link Hamlin to something else?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far as to say that they're dirty. I haven't seen any proof of that. I think that he's definitely an a-hole, but I don't think he's dirty. All right, final thoughts, anybody?
No, I'm very excited for the last 2 episodes.
Me too.
I expect, some of what we said today will be right, but I more expect some, especially in the finale, some giant shocker.
I agree.
Of one kind or another.
Oh, I'm excited.
All right, so folks, that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Better Call Saul After Show. Please send us those tweets with the hashtag ABTVSaul if you want to have your questions answered by our special guest Michael Mando next week. Don't miss it. It's going to be live, I imagine. It's going to be live.
Yeah.
I imagine that it's going to be live.
It's always live.
We're gonna try.
It's always live. I'll try to do YouTube.
Yeah.
It'll be live at some point in the night. For you to watch.
So keep your eyes peeled to our Twitter to know the exact time that it will go live on YouTube. You can follow Zach Wilson at where, Zach?
You can follow me at that Zach Wilson, THATZACHWILSON. Whole bunch of shows here at AFTERBUZZ tomorrow night. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Once again.
Yes.
You can follow me on Twitter at Pegah Rad. Also tonight at 11 p.m. the House of Cards after show, and tomorrow we have The Following and Forever.
Check me out on the Helix After Show next week with guests all the way to episode 13, as well as here next week.
Fantastic. And you can find me on Twitter at Matt Lieberman. That's MATTLIEBERMAN. Visit my YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Matt Lieberman. I'm trying to get 10,000 subscribers by my birthday, which is in 2 weeks. Whoa. I do a lot of fantastic positivity and advice kind of column stuff. It's cool. Check it out. Also, SourceFed and SourceFed Nerd. I want to thank you so much for joining us. See you next week. Good night.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Better call you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.